The Aegis Dynamic Sabre sits in an interesting space amongst the fighter lineup in Star Citizen. Billed as a stealth fighter, the Sabre sits somewhere between a light and medium fighter and obviously leans into the stealth low emissions characteristics. But how does the Aegis Sabre fly in-game as of patch 4.3? I'm Forrester, and this video will review the currently flyable Aegis Sabre, which is described on the Star Citizen website as a stealth fighter. If you've seen other ship reviews on this channel, you may well recognise the format for this video. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs and profitability, before finally summarising. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead. And if you're one of the 2/3 of people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider it, not least so you can keep up to date when new ship reviews like this drop. And this review of the Aegis Sabre is based on performance in Star Citizen Alpha 4.3. And we'll start the tour for the Sabre on the starboard side, approaching towards the front. Beneath the canopy are 2 small white buttons, the first of which deploys a weapons rack, and the second of which accesses the onboard storage. Moving around towards the back of the fighter, we see the engine exhaust at the rear, and on the port side at the rear is a small button which opens a fuel port. It doesn't currently do anything in game, but seeing the action open is pretty cool. And then to get aboard the ship, there is a ladder on the port side right at the front which deploys down. This takes you into the cockpit of the Sabre. Of note are the 4 MFD screens, which is quite nice to have that customizability. The primary armament on the Sabre is a set of 4 size 3 weapons, defaulting to Panther laser repeaters. In terms of firepower, that puts it slightly heavier armed than most light fighters, but below many of the medium fighters. Additionally, the Sabre carries 4 size 3 missiles, although the launcher hardpoints could be swapped out for up to 2 size 4 missiles or up to 16 size 1 missiles. Defensively, the Sabre is equipped with dual size 1 shield generators, which is on a par with most light fighters. Altogether, the Sabre feels fairly fast, with enough firepower to quickly deal with smaller threats. It's a little more vulnerable in the melee with stock components, so avoiding sustained fire is important, which probably makes sense for a stealth fighter. That said, when the shields do go down, it seems to hold on for a surprisingly long time. It's fun to fight with, although the low observability and emissions characteristics are probably very situational in-game right now, with opportunities to capitalise on a stealth profile few and far between. The Sabre sports a canopy right at the front of the fighter, with sightlines to the front, sides and above. Visibility is a little more limited below, but because of the small size of the ship and the location of the canopy, that's not a particular problem. Cockpit struts do marginally constrain sightlines to the sides, but at the sort of speeds the Sabre moves at, that's not too much of an issue either. And those speeds are up to 223 meters per second on the limiter in SCM, with boosted speeds up to 480. The boost reserves are fairly generous too, making a quick attack run possible in many circumstances. In SCM mode, the Sabre flies nicely, quick in the turn, and snappy without much drift, even when planetside. Kicking up to nav speeds, the Sabre tops out at 1,225 meters per second, which is comparable to many other fighters and means it is able to chase down all manner of targets, not to mention cross distances quickly. The quantum drive is on the slower side however, but the fuel stores aboard are good, so even with an upgrade, the Sabre can comfortably cross large distances. In terms of ordinary running costs, the Sabre is fairly cheap to run across refuel and repair, usually at most in the low thousands of Alpha UEC. Things change when firing the missiles however, which can quickly add up, with a full restock potentially at 30,000 credits, so not firing the missiles is the much cheaper option. Whilst the Sabre has a small internal inventory, there is no physicalized storage for crates aboard, so money-making options are largely going to be focused on combat contracts. For ship combat, the medium threat targets seem to be the sweet spot, where the Sabre is able to rapidly work its way through them, although experienced pilots will be able to push beyond that. The payout isn't the highest for those missions, but the Sabre can still turn a small profit whilst a pilot has some fun fighting bad guys out in space. In terms of upgrades, there's some scope to swap out for preference, for example putting in stealth coolers to further reduce the profile of the fighter, or perhaps swapping out the weapons. One key upgrade for those travelling is likely to be the quantum drive. A Zephyr might be good for those who prefer to keep the same stealth profile, or perhaps an Atlas if that's not important to you. The Sabre is a nice fighter to fly. It feels like it sits somewhere between the light and medium fighter archetypes, and if that suits how you like to fight, the Sabre may well fit like a glove. Aesthetically, it looks good, and having 4 MFDs up front is a useful feature too. Deploying the landing gear sweeps back the wings, a little like a Tomcat, allowing the Sabre to fit into tighter landing spots, including on some carriers. And in the rare instance where things go wrong, the reclaim timer can be expedited to as low as 3 minutes, which means there isn't a long wait to get back in the action. The stealth characteristics of the ship are rather situational however. That's not to say that the Sabre isn't stealthy, it can be, but not to the same extent as an Eclipse for example, even with the extra stealth components fitted. That said, if stealth isn't important, swapping everything out for military spec components, if they can be sourced, can make the Sabre feel plenty like a regular fighter anyway. As far as price goes, the Sabre comes in at around $160 to $175, which, while cheaper than many other fighters, is still a lot of money for a virtual starfighter. For somebody who fell in love with this ship and knows they want to fight other fighters, that might be worth it. But perhaps more appealing is the in-game price at 4.5 million credits, which is comparable to the price of a Mark II Hornet. The Sabre isn't so heavily armed, but it flies faster, so it feels like a fair choice to make at that price based on the preferences of the pilot. As a side note, the last review of the Sabre on this channel was February 2021, and it has been great to dust off this ship and put it through its paces again. It really is a nice fighter to fly. But what do you think of the Sabre? I look forward to reading your thoughts in the video comments. If you enjoyed this video, you might press the like button to help me understand what videos to make more of in future, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, you might like to do that too, so that YouTube knows to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.